The Soviet Union did not just fight a war, they endured a mechanical metamorphosis. From the rattling, multi-turreted relics of the interwar years to the sleek, sloped armor predators that eventually raised the red flag over the Reichstag, the Red Army's armored doctrine was forged in the white heat of the greatest land conflict in human history. It was a philosophy of brutal simplicity, staggering numbers, and a relentless drive toward the universal tank. We will trace the evolution from the cavalry scouts of the frontier to the heavy breakthroughs of the late war offensives, covering the legends, the failures, and the forgotten steel of the USSR. This is the complete catalog of Soviet tanks and armored vehicles of World War II. Let's begin. Tankettes and amphibious lights. The T-37. Based on the British Carden-Loyd design, the T-27 was the Red Army's first real step into mass mechanization. It was a tiny two-man box on tracks, armed only with a single 7.62mm DT machine gun. While it lacked a rotating turret and had armor only 10mm thick, over 2,500 were produced. By 1941, it was hopelessly obsolete for frontline combat, but it served a vital role as a light artillery tractor and reconnaissance scout during the desperate opening months of Operation Barbarossa. The T-37A, the world's first mass-produced amphibious tank. It featured a small propeller and a rudder, allowing it to navigate the USSR's vast river networks at speeds of 6 km per hour in water. With only 9mm of armor, it was essentially a floating tin can. It proved tactically useful in the early stages of the Winter War against Finland for flanking maneuvers, though its thin skin made it a death trap against even the light Finnish anti-tank rifles. The T-38, an evolution of the T-37A, the T-38 was wider and featured a lower profile, making it more stable in the water. It was designed to provide infantry support during amphibious crossings, but its combat record was plagued by mechanical unreliability. By the time of the German invasion, many were stripped of their turrets to serve as prime movers for light field guns, while others were used in desperate rearguard actions where they were quickly decimated. The T-40, the final development of the Soviet amphibious light tank line before the focus shifted to pure ground combat. It was significantly better armed, sporting a 12.7mm DSHK heavy machine gun capable of shredding light German reconnaissance vehicles. However, as the German invasion intensified, the requirement for buoyancy was dropped to save weight for thicker armor. This transition version, known as the T-40S, led directly to the birth of the T-60 light tank. Light tanks. The T-26, the backbone of the Soviet Armored Corps throughout the 1930s. Based on the Vickers 6-ton, it featured a 45mm 20K gun, which was actually more powerful than the 37mm guns found on early German panzers. Over 10,000 were produced in dozens of variants, including flamethrower and command versions. However, its thin, riveted armor was its Achilles' heel. It could be penetrated by almost any German anti-tank weapon of the era, leading to catastrophic losses in 1941. The BT-2 and BT-5, the Bystrakhodny or high-speed series, utilized the revolutionary Christie suspension, allowing the tanks to run on tracks or remove them to drive on wheels for road travel. The BT-5, armed with a 45mm gun, could reach speeds of 45 miles per hour. It was designed for deep strike operations, intended to race into the enemy's rear and collapse logistics. Their downfall was thin armor and highly flammable petrol engines, which led to high crew casualties when the hulls were breached. The BT-7, the ultimate refinement of the BT series. It featured a more powerful M17T engine and distinctive sloped armor on the turret to increase the chance of deflecting shells. During the Battle of Khalkhin Gol against the Japanese, the BT-7's speed and 45mm gun dominated the battlefield. However, on the Eastern Front, its light construction was no match for German tactical superiority and the dense terrain that neutralized its speed advantage. The T-60. In 1941, as major factories were being evacuated to the Ural Mountains, the Soviet Union needed a tank that could be built in bicycle and automotive plants. The T-60 was the answer. It used truck engines and a 20mm TNSH autocannon. While it stood no chance against medium panzers, its small size and mobility made it excellent for harassment and infantry support during the darkest hours of the Moscow defense. The T-70. Replacing the T-60, the T-70 featured a 45mm gun and much thicker frontal armor, reaching 60mm in some sections. It was the most common Soviet light tank of the war, with over 8,000 built. It was surprisingly effective in the ruins of Stalingrad, where its small silhouette allowed it to ambush German columns. However, its biggest flaw was its one-man turret. The commander was forced to load, aim, and fire the gun while simultaneously directing the driver, a workload that made the tank tactically inefficient. The T-80 Light. Not to be confused with the modern main battle tank, this was a short-lived improvement on the T-70. It featured a redesigned two-man turret, finally allowing the commander to focus on the battlefield while a dedicated loader handled the gun. Only about 120 were built before the Red Army realized that light tanks were no longer viable in the face of heavy German anti-tank weaponry. Production was shifted entirely to the T-34 and Su-76. Medium tanks. The T-24, one of the first purely Soviet-designed medium tanks. Only 24 were ever built due to constant mechanical failures and a design that was already becoming obsolete. Though it never saw major combat, it was the testing ground for the Soviet design bureaus, providing the foundation for the heavy tractors and engine layouts that would eventually power the T-34. The T-28, a massive, multi-turreted medium tank designed in the early 1930s. It featured one main 76mm turret and two smaller machine gun turrets at the front. It was intended to break through fortified lines like the Mannerheim Line in Finland. While it looked terrifying, its armor was thin for its size, and the complex drivetrain made it a maintenance nightmare. Most were lost in 1941 due to mechanical breakdowns or abandonment during the retreat. The T-3476, the tank that redefined armored warfare. When it first appeared on the battlefield, its sloped armor and powerful 76mm F-34 gun made it virtually immune to standard German anti-tank guns. It combined wide tracks for traveling through deep mud with a powerful V2 diesel engine. It was a revolutionary machine, though early versions suffered from poor optics, cramped interiors, and a lack of radios, often requiring the commander to use signal flags. The T-43, a prototype intended to replace the T-34 in 1943. It featured much thicker armor and a torsion bar suspension for a smoother ride and better stability. However, the Soviet High Command realized that the T-3476 could be upgunned with a larger turret more quickly than they could retool factories for the T-43. The project was canceled to avoid a dip in production numbers, but its turret ring and layout directly influenced the T-3485s. The T-3485s, the definitive Soviet tank of World War II. By 1944, the 76mm gun was struggling against the thick hides of Tigers and Panthers. The Soviets fitted a massive new three-man turret and an 85mm S-53 high-velocity gun onto the T-34 hull. This version corrected the ergonomic flaws of the original and gave the Red Army a tank that could go toe-to-toe with the German heavyweights while remaining easy to mass-produce. The T-44, a radical departure from the T-34, designed late in the war. The T-44 moved the engine sideways, transverse-mounted, allowing for a much lower profile and a more centered turret. While it entered production in late 1944, it was held back from combat to ensure that logistical lines weren't complicated during the final push to Berlin. It would serve as the direct ancestor to the legendary T-54 and T-55 series, the most produced tanks in human history. Heavy tanks. The T-35, a massive, slow-moving behemoth with 5 independent turrets, one 76mm, two 45mm, and 2 machine gun turrets. It was a propaganda icon, designed to represent Soviet industrial might. In reality, it was far too heavy for its engines and too wide for most bridges. During the first weeks of the war, almost every single T-35 was lost not to German shells, but to mechanical failure and the sheer impossibility of moving them during a retreat. The KV-1. Named after Kliment Voroshilov, the KV-1 was a nightmare for the Wehrmacht in 1941. Its 75mm of frontal armor was so thick that German 37mm and 50mm guns simply bounced off. At the Battle of Rosinyi, a single KV-1 famously held up an entire German division for a full day. It was slow, and its gearbox was notoriously difficult to shift, but it bought the Soviet Union precious time to reorganize its defenses. The KV-2, a KV-1 hull topped with a gargantuan, box-shaped turret housing a 152mm M10 howitzer. It was designed specifically to smash Finnish bunkers. In the field, it was top-heavy, slow, and couldn't rotate its turret unless the tank was on perfectly level ground. While it was an engineering absurdity, the sight of a KV-2 looming over the horizon was enough to send German infantry into a panic. The KV-1S, a lightened version of the KV-1 developed in 1942. By thinning the armor and installing a better transmission, the Soviets created a heavy tank that could actually keep up with the T-34. While it was more reliable, it lost the near invulnerability that defined the early KV series, leading many tank crews to question why they weren't just using T-34s instead. The KV-85, As the Panther tank began appearing in numbers, the KV-1S became obsolete. The Soviets rushed the 85mm D5T gun into a modified KV-1S turret. It was a bridge between the old KV series and the upcoming IS series. It provided the necessary firepower to knock out Panthers at range, but only 148 were built before production switched to the more advanced IS-1. The IS-1, the beginning of the Iosif Stalin series. It featured a more streamlined hull with better sloped armor than the KV. However, it was quickly realized that the 85mm gun, while good for a medium tank, wasn't powerful enough for a dedicated heavy breakthrough tank. Only 200 were built before the design was upgraded with a much larger weapon. The IS-2, the most powerful Soviet tank of the war. Armed with a massive 122mm D25T gun, it could penetrate the front of a Panther at over 1,000 meters, or simply blow the turret off with the raw kinetic energy of its high explosive shells. It featured incredibly thick, sloped armor, and was the spearhead of the Red Army's drive into the heart of Germany. The IS-3, featuring the revolutionary pike nose frontal armor and a hemispherical turret, the IS-3 looked like a machine from the 1950s. While it didn't see significant combat before the German surrender, its appearance at the 1945 Berlin Victory Parade sent shockwaves through the Western Allies. It represented the peak of World War II heavy tank design, and set the standard for Soviet tanks for decades. Self-propelled guns and tank destroyers. The ZIS-30. When the Germans invaded, the Soviets were desperate for mobile anti-tank weapons. They took the 57mm ZIS-2, a gun with incredible penetration, and bolted it onto the back of a Komsomolets tractor. It was unstable, the crew was completely exposed to the elements and fire, but the gun was so effective it could kill any German tank in 1941. The Su-76. Officially called the Su-76, its crews nicknamed it Suka because of its open top and tendency to catch fire if the engine was pushed too hard. It was a 76mm ZIS-3 gun mounted on a lengthened T-70 light tank chassis. Despite its flaws, it was the second most produced Soviet armored vehicle of the war, providing essential direct fire support for infantry in every major battle from 1943 onward. The Su-122. Built on the T-34 chassis, this vehicle carried a 122mm M30S howitzer in a fixed casemate. It was designed to provide heavy fire support against fortified positions. It was effective in its role, but the slow rate of fire and the lack of a rotating turret made it vulnerable if it was caught without tank or infantry support. The Su-85. A T-34 hull converted into a dedicated tank destroyer with an 85mm D5S gun. It lacked a turret, which saved weight and allowed it to carry a larger, more powerful gun than the T-3476 of the time. It was a clean, low-profile design meant for one thing: hunting panzers from a distance before they could get in range to fire back. The Su-100, the successor to the Su-85, armed with a 100mm D-10S naval gun. This weapon could penetrate the front of a Tiger II at 1,000 meters. It featured improved frontal armor, 75mm sloped, and better optics. It was arguably the best tank destroyer of the war, combining mobility, a low silhouette, and devastating lethality. The Su-152. Built on the KV-1S chassis, this vehicle mounted a 152mm ML-20S gun howitzer. It earned its nickname Zveroboy, Beast Slayer, at the Battle of Kursk, where it proved capable of destroying Tigers, Panthers, and Ferdinands. The sheer weight of its 100-pound shells meant that even if the armor wasn't penetrated, the explosion would often shatter the German tank's suspension or concuss the crew to death. The Isu-122. Utilizing the heavy IS tank chassis, this vehicle mounted the 122mm A-19 gun in a fixed casemate. It was a heavy-hitting alternative to the IS-2 tank, often used in breakthrough regiments to provide sustained fire against German heavy armor and fortified bunkers. The Isu-152. An improvement on the Su-152 using the more reliable IS chassis. It was a multi-role monster, part heavy tank destroyer, part mobile siege engine. It was the nightmare of the German defense, capable of leveling entire city blocks in Berlin with a single high-explosive shot. Armored cars. The BA-3 and BA-6. Early 6X4 armored cars armed with the same 45mm turret as the T-26. They were incredibly well armed for armored cars of the 1930s, but they were heavy and struggled with off-road mobility. Most were lost during the opening stages of Barbarossa, but they proved that the Soviets were early believers in putting big guns on wheels. The BA-10. The most iconic Soviet armored car of the war. It was used throughout the conflict for reconnaissance and liaison duties. While its armor was paper-thin, only 10 to 15 millimeters, its 45 millimeters gun allowed it to engage enemy light scouts effectively. It was the eyes and ears of many Soviet divisions during the long road back to Germany. The BA-20, a light, four-wheeled armored car based on the Gaz-M1 civilian car chassis. It was used primarily for communication and as a command vehicle for high-ranking officers. It was fast on roads but offered protection only against small arms fire and shrapnel. The BA-64, a small 4x4 armored car based on the Gaz-67 Jeep. It was nimble, easy to maintain, and featured steeply sloped armor that could deflect machine gun fire. It became the standard light scout of the late war Red Army, often seen racing ahead of the tank columns to find the next German defensive line. Lend-Lease, the imports. The M3 Stuart, Soviet crews nicknamed this American light tank the Suvorov. They liked its mechanical reliability and speed, which were far superior to the T-60. However, by 1943, its 37mm gun was too weak for the Eastern Front, and it was increasingly relegated to secondary fronts or reconnaissance. The M3 Lee. Soviet crews famously hated the American M3 Lee. Its high profile made it an impossible target to miss, and its riveted construction meant that a hit would turn the rivets into internal shrapnel. They gave it its grim nickname because it carried 7 crew members, all of whom were in extreme danger the moment a German 50mm gun opened fire. The Valentine. In contrast to the M3 Lee, the Soviets loved the British Valentine. It was reliable, had a low profile, and was surprisingly tough for a light-medium tank. They used thousands of them, especially in the Caucasian mountains, where their mechanical endurance was vital. The Matilda II. While the Soviets appreciated the Matilda's thick armor, they found its narrow tracks to be a disaster in the deep Russian snow and mud. The tank would frequently bog down, and the mud would freeze in the skirts, locking the tracks. Most were relegated to training or secondary sectors. The Churchill. The Soviets received several hundred Churchill MKIVs. They highly valued the heavy armor, which allowed them to lead breakthroughs in the same way they used the KV-1. While they found the speed frustratingly slow, they respected its ability to soak up fire. The M4A2 Sherman. Soviet crews often preferred the Sherman to the T-34. It was more comfortable, had better optics, and the radios actually worked. The MCHA from the M and M4 served in elite guards units, and many Soviet tank aces, such as Dmitry Loza, achieved their greatest victories in the American Sherman. Logistics and specialized vehicles. The Komsomolets, a small, fully tracked armored tractor used to tow 45mm anti-tank guns. While not a frontline combat vehicle, it was often equipped with a machine gun. It was the unsung hero of the Soviet logistics chain, ensuring the infantry always had their anti-tank guns where they were needed most. The Gaz-AAA, the triple-axle truck that moved the Red Army. It carried the ammunition, the fuel, and the food. Without the thousands of Gaz trucks and the American Studebakers, the armored divisions would have ground to a halt within days of any major offensive. The Stalinets S-65, a heavy civilian tractor pressed into military service. Slow and lumbering, it was the only thing capable of pulling a bogged-down T-34 out of the waist-deep mud of the Russian spring. It was a symbol of the raw power required to survive the Russian landscape. The Voroshilovets, a massive tracked artillery tractor designed to pull the heaviest siege guns, such as the 203mm B-4 howitzer. It used the engine from a BT-7 and the suspension from a T-24. It was a masterpiece of heavy-duty engineering that kept the Soviet big guns moving. From the humble T-27 tankette to the world-shaking IS-3, the Soviet Union's armored catalog is a testament to a nation that learned to outproduce and out-engineer its invaders through sheer, bloody-minded pragmatism. These vehicles were not always refined, and they were rarely comfortable, but they were built for a singular, brutal purpose: to survive the vastness of the East and crush the Third Reich under a tide of steel. They remain a permanent legacy of the greatest industrial mobilization in human history. Which of these Soviet steel giants do you think was the most influential on the Eastern Front? The reliable T-34 or the terrifying IS-2? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe to Military Blueprint for the next complete catalog.